So one of the questions my clients always ask me is, Jenna, how long am I supposed to train my dog for? Like how frequently? What's the time limit? And that's what we're answering today, so stick around. Hey friends, it's Jenna with Dog Liaison, where I coach you on how to enhance your dog's mental health. And on this channel, we break down scientific research to inform us on how to train dogs. So if you're like me and you like to nerd out on canine cognition, make sure you hit subscribe. Stick around because today we are talking about how long we should be training our dogs for and how frequently we should be having those training sessions. It's one of the most common questions that my clients ask me, and there are general answers that I can give, and I will give them to you. But I feel like in order to really be effective, we need to break down those questions a little bit more, get a little bit more nuanced, and that's what we're doing today. The overarching general answer that I like to give my clients is whatever's sustainable. I think the more cliche answer that you might hear from other trainers is 2 to 5 minutes, 2 to 5 times a day for a training session. And honestly, that's not a bad rule to live by. If you're looking for like a concrete answer, 2 to 5 times a day for 2 to 5 minutes each, that's a pretty reasonable expectation. But the reality is that not all of us are home 24/7 with our dogs, and we can't always trickle it out throughout the day. So sometimes you only have a matter of between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. when you go to bed. And so that's one of the reasons my answer with my clients is I want you to do whatever is sustainable. And the reason is because you are training your dog for life. Your dog is not in training for 6 weeks or for 8 weeks, and you are not putting your dog in some sort of high intense course, and then once he's through with it, he'll never have to train and learn again. That's not true. In fact, if you do that, you're more likely to get a lot of behavioral issues down the road. Learning is for life. So what I want you to do is make sure that you're setting up reasonable expectations for yourself that you can do sustainably. So make sure you stick around till the end, because at the very end I'm going to give you guys kind of a pro tip that I personally use in order to make sure that I am not overworking a dog or that the training session isn't going for too long. So the number one rule is just to remember that training should be fun for you and for your dog. And the second that it starts to feel like work, the second that it starts to feel like you are just exhausting each other, stop, because this is about sustainability. If on Tuesdays you're super busy, don't train on Tuesdays. Like, I don't care. If on Saturdays and Sundays is when you have the majority of your free time, but during the week is pretty difficult because of work, then say to yourself, okay, Monday through Friday, I want to hit 3 training sessions, but on Saturday and Sunday, I promise to hit, 4 training sessions each day, or whatever. But something that's unique to older dogs is that they may have never even had formal training before. They've never even experienced what it's like to go through a learning process or to have learning new skills trickled throughout the day. That might be a completely new idea to them. And so when you start working with them, even though, from a biological standpoint, they're older than a puppy, from a neurological standpoint, they're still pretty adolescent and they're underdeveloped. And so when you start training them to do new skills, that is equally taxing. If you haven't really been training your dog or teaching your dog any new learned behaviors in recent history, now you are reawakening literally parts of their brain that has been underutilized and isn't performing as proficiently as it should be, or definitely as proficiently as it could be. And so your training session should really only last between 2 to 5 minutes or so, if not shorter than that. And that is one rule that is true for all dogs across the board, is the longer you work them, the more likely it is they're going to make mistakes. I know that people want to have it in your mind that, if you just keep practicing, they'll get it. Just keep going, just keep going. We need to be thinking in terms of reality. And just because they're doing it wonderfully at the beginning of the training session absolutely does not mean that they're going to be doing it wonderfully at the end of the training session. And if anything, they're more likely to be doing it poorly. The moment that you see your dog is saying, oh, we're still doing this. Oh my God, here we go. Or likewise, the treats have lost their value, or toys. The reward that you were using has lost its value and it's just not as necessarily exciting as it was before. You have worked your dog too long at that point. The moment that you see your dog saying, I'm done with this, you have passed the point of when you should have stopped. You always want to end the dog's training session on a high. You always want to end the training session with him saying, wait, that's it? I want more. And if they're constantly stopping and saying, oh, really? You are not doing well to keep them motivated to keep learning throughout their entire life. And if you feel like you have gone too long because maybe your dog is saying, this is getting exhausting. You know, sometimes that happens. I mean, even to me, it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes I'll be working with a dog and I accidentally go too long. I thought they could handle 6 minutes, and at 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, the dog is looking at me like, really? We're still doing this? And so it's important that I take the note and go, okay, we're done. No worries, you know, especially if the dog knows that you are working with a wonderful reinforcer, like their favorite toy, like their favorite treat, like, you know, you're giving them the belly scratch that they love so much, whatever it is. If they still decide to walk away from that reward and go, I'm kind of over this, you've ended it on a low and it's an accident, but you need to be taking note of it and preventing it from happening in the future. And as a pro tip, one of the things that I personally do is I do 2 things. One, if I'm working with my own dog, I often will do it on commercials. And I know you're looking at me like, who watches commercials anymore, right? But personally, especially if it's like a football game, I'll practice while all of the commercials are going. And then the other thing is that I'll practice during the YouTube ads. So sometimes you get the ads and the commercials in the middle of the videos, and I will let the ads run, even though I can skip. If I'm training my dog, I'll let them run because it gives me the perfect amount of time, right? Most of the ads are between 30 seconds and 2.5 minutes, and that's the perfect amount of time for training. So use those ads as sort of your time block to tell you how long you've been training for. So the other thing that I do is I will count out the amount of treats before the training session. So sometimes it's a matter of 15 treats, sometimes it's a matter of 30 treats. It really just depends on what it is I'm training and what is likely to be my rate of reinforcement. So how many times is the dog going to offer me an ideal behavior? So counting the treats out ahead of time tells me exactly how many repetitions I'm working with, and it is an excellent way for me to make sure that I'm not overworking my dog, and make sure that I'm asking fair criteria of him. And in the case of an anxious or reactive dog or something that you were counter conditioning, you can use the amount of stimuli to tell you how long to train. So for example, you say, I'm going to train for 5 dogs, and as soon as I hit 5 dogs walking by my Bichon, I'm gonna go home, or whatever it is, right? Count the amount of stimuli that you want to do ahead of time, and then as soon as you hit that number, turn back. The thing to think about that though is that, for example, if you're on a walk and you hit 5 dogs and you are a whole mile away from home, you still have to walk back a whole mile, and you're probably going to come across more dogs on that mile. So if that happens, you really want to be thinking about, okay, I need to plan ahead of time, right? If I get 2 to 3 dogs going this way, then I need to anticipate that I'll probably have 2 to 3 dogs going back. The reality is that in terms of an anxiety-ridden dog, I would much rather you say, I wanted to hit 5, but I only hit 3 because of circumstances, than for you to say, I wanted to hit 5, but I accidentally hit 8, and those other 3 opportunities that a dog came up, my dog went over threshold. So I'd much rather you accidentally not hit enough training set opportunities than for you to overtrain and cause your dog unnecessary stress. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit like and consider subscribing. If you have any questions, you can always ask in the comments below. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at dog_liaison. Don't forget the double I, and feel free to reach out. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.